Now I know what they eliminated him for.
The rain hammered against the grimy windows of Lucas's old apartment like bullets from heaven, each drop a reminder that God had terrible aim. I sat on my dead son's bed, staring at the lockbox I'd just pried from beneath his mattress, wondering how many more secrets were buried in this godforsaken place. 3 months ago, I'd watched my wife Isabel weep beautifully in that Boston courtroom, her Portuguese accent making even her lies sound like poetry. She'd convinced 12 jurors that I was responsible for Lucas's passing, negligent father, absent husband, the whole tragic opera. $800,000 in insurance money later, she was planning her new life while I was packing my old one into boxes. She wept so convincingly, I muttered to the empty room. I almost believed her myself. The apartment still smelled like Lucas, Old Spice and coffee, with that underlying scent of youth that disappears when someone dies. I'd moved here to Lisbon partly to feel close to him, partly because Boston held too many memories of Isabel's betrayal. The neighbors thought I was crazy, this 48-year-old American software architect living in a dead college kid's studio. Maybe I was. But crazy people don't find lockboxes full of cash and flash drives. My hands shook as I counted the bills. $250,000, all hundreds, wrapped in neat stacks with rubber bands. Beneath the money lay 3 USB drives and a handwritten note in Lucas's messy scrawl. Dad, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Use this to find out what really happened to me. Trust no one, especially her. The truth is on the drives. I stared at those words until they blurred. Lucas had been 22 when he died, supposedly from a pill overdose in this very apartment. The Portuguese police had closed the case quickly, too quickly, I'd thought at the time. Isabel had handled all the arrangements, speaking rapid Portuguese with the authorities while I sat in shock, not understanding a word. Now I was beginning to think that had been intentional. The first flash drive contained financial records, bank transfers, cryptocurrency wallets, transactions that made no sense for a college student. The second held photographs. Isabel with men I didn't recognize, meeting in expensive restaurants, getting into black sedans with diplomatic plates. The third drive made my blood freeze. It was surveillance footage from this apartment, time-stamped just 2 weeks before Lucas died. The camera angle suggested it was hidden, maybe in that old lamp by the window. On screen, Isabel entered with a man I'd never seen. Tall, dark-haired, wearing an expensive suit. They were arguing with Lucas in Portuguese, voices rising. I couldn't understand the words, but body language is universal. Isabel was threatening him. The stranger was enjoying it. Lucas looked terrified. Then, clear as day, Lucas switched to English. You can't keep lying to him forever. He deserves to know the truth about Anna, about all of it. Isabel slapped him, hard. Your father knows nothing because there is nothing to know, she hissed, also in English now. You are his son. That is the story. That is the only story. But I'm not, Lucas whispered, touching his cheek. And Anna isn't dead, is she? You hid her. You've been lying about everything. The stranger stepped forward, and Lucas flinched. Some lies are necessary, boy. Your job is to keep your mouth shut and play the grieving son. Our arrangement depends on it. What arrangement? Lucas demanded. Isabel and the stranger exchanged a look. Then Isabel smiled, the same cold smile she'd given me when she asked for a divorce. The kind that keeps you alive, she said. The video ended there. I sat in the growing darkness, rain still pounding the windows, trying to process what I'd just seen. Anna. Who the hell was Anna? And what did Lucas mean when he said he wasn't my son? I'd always known something was off about Lucas's adoption. Isabel had handled everything when we were living in Portugal 15 years ago, back when I was consulting for tech companies in Europe. She'd presented me with a baby and a sob story about a teenage mother who died in childbirth. I'd been so happy to finally have a child that I hadn't asked too many questions. Now, I was wondering if I should have asked more. The apartment's buzzer rang, making me jump. I shoved the drives into my jacket pocket and went to the intercom. Sim, I said, using one of the few Portuguese words I knew. Senor Caldwell, é Rosa da Porta ao lado? The voice was elderly, female, speaking rapid Portuguese. Rosa was my neighbor, a 70-something gossip who spoke broken English and had opinions about everything. I buzzed her up, mainly because I needed human contact that wasn't coming from a computer screen. She appeared at my door carrying a plate of pastéis de nata and wearing a concerned expression. "You look terrible," she announced in her heavily accented English. "Like Ghost, you eat nothing, yes?" "I'm fine, Rosa. Just going through Lucas's things." She pushed past me into the apartment, setting the pastries on the small kitchen counter. "Lucas was good boy, but—" She paused, looking around nervously. "He had visitors before he died. Strange visitors." My pulse quickened. What kind of visitors? Woman. Beautiful woman, but cold eyes, like snake. Rosa shivered dramatically. "And man with her. Fancy car, expensive clothes. They come at night, argue loud. Lucas, he was scared." "Did you recognize the woman?" Rosa studied my face carefully. "You show me photo. Maybe I remember better." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a picture of Isabel from our wedding day. Rosa's eyes widened. Ay, Deus mío. That is your wife, no? The one from funeral?" "Ex-wife," I corrected. "What did you hear them arguing about?" "My Portuguese is better than my English, but they speak both languages. Something about money, about girl named Anna, about keeping secrets." Rosa leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I think maybe Lucas was in trouble. Bad trouble." After Rosa left, I sat at Lucas's desk and opened his laptop. It was password protected, but I'd helped him set it up years ago, and he'd never been creative with passwords. Red Sox 2019 got me in on the second try. His browser history told a story. Searches for Ana Moura Porto, Embassy Diplomatic Immunity, Witness Protection Portugal, and How to Disappear Completely. The last search was dated 3 days before his passing. I found a folder hidden deep in his files labeled Insurance. Inside were documents that made my hands shake. Birth certificates, adoption papers, DNA test results. Lucas wasn't my biological son, that much was confirmed. But more shocking was the second set of papers. Ana Moura was my biological daughter. According to the documents, Isabel had given birth to twins 18 years ago, during one of our separations. She'd told me she'd had a pregnancy fault, that the stress of our marriage problems had caused her to lose the baby. I'd held her while she cried, felt guilty for months about the child we'd never had, except we had had her. Isabel had hidden Anna, placed her with a family in Porto, and told everyone, including me, that the baby had died. Then she'd presented me with Lucas, claiming he was an orphan who needed a home. The DNA tests proved it all. Lucas had been trying to reunite me with my real daughter when he died. I found Anna's current address in Porto, along with photos Lucas had taken of her from a distance. She was beautiful, tall like me, with Isabel's dark hair but my green eyes. She was studying art at the University of Porto, living under the name Ana Moura with a family who believed they were her legal guardians. Lucas's notes indicated he'd been planning to tell me everything, but someone had found out. The last entry in his journal, dated the day before he died, was chilling. They know I know. Miguel says they can make me disappear like Anna did, but permanently this time. I have to tell Dad everything before it's too late. If something happens to me, the evidence is hidden where only he would think to look. I hope he finds it. I hope he finds her. Miguel. The man from the video had a name now. I spent the next hour researching Miguel Duarte online. Officially, he was a cultural attaché at the Portuguese embassy in Boston. Unofficially, based on what I could piece together from social media and news articles, he was Isabel's handler, and probably her lover. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed made me sick. Isabel had been working for Portuguese intelligence, using our marriage as cover. She'd hidden our real daughter and substituted Lucas to maintain her cover story. When Lucas threatened to expose the truth, they'd eliminated him and made it look like an overdose. And I'd been too grief-stricken and trusting to see any of it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or join your son." I stared at the message, then smiled grimly. Someone was watching me, which meant I was on the right track. I texted back, "Come and make me." The response came immediately. "We know where you are. We know about the drives. Give them to us and disappear, or we'll make sure you disappear permanently." I always hated plot twists, I muttered to the empty apartment, especially when I'm living in one. But if Isabel and Miguel thought they could scare me off with threats, they didn't know me very well. They'd taken my son, the boy I'd raised as my own, who died trying to reunite me with my real daughter. They'd stolen 18 years of my relationship with Anna. They'd made me believe I was a failure as a father when the truth was I'd never even been given the chance to be one. Now they were going to pay for all of it. I packed the money and drives into a backpack, along with copies of all the documents. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them what a software architect with nothing left to lose could do. I'd built systems for a living. Now I was going to tear one down. Starting with theirs. The next morning brought weak Lisbon sunshine and a hangover I hadn't earned. I'd spent the night making copies of everything, uploading files to secure servers, and researching Miguel Duarte until my eyes burned. Now, I needed help from someone who understood how this city worked. Lourenco Silva had been my drinking buddy during my first stint in Portugal 15 years ago, back when I was young and stupid enough to trust my wife. Len was an ex-cop turned private investigator with a face like weathered leather and a sense of humor darker than Portuguese coffee. If anyone could help me navigate the maze of corruption Isabel and Miguel had built, it was him. I found him at his usual morning spot, a cafe near the Rocio station where he held court with other retired cops and current criminals, the line between them blurrier than most people would like to admit. "Ethan Caldwell," he said in accented English as I approached his table. "You look like hell warmed over and served cold." "Feel worse than I look," I replied, sitting across from him. "I need help, Len, the kind that might get us both in trouble." His dark eyes sharpened with interest. "The best kind, then. What's the job?" I slid him a photo of Miguel across the table. "I need to know everything about this man. Where he goes, who he meets, what he eats for breakfast. Everything." Len studied the photo, then whistled low. "Miguel Duarte, embassy man. This is dangerous territory, my friend." "How dangerous?" "The kind where people disappear and their families get told they moved to Brazil." Len leaned back in his chair. "What did he do to you?" "I think he eliminated my son." The casual chatter at nearby tables seemed to fade as Len's expression grew serious. "Tell me everything." I gave him the abbreviated version, the hidden evidence, the surveillance video, Anna's existence. Len listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or making notes in a small notebook. "Your wife," he said finally. "She was always too smooth, even 15 years ago. Too many answers, too few questions. I should have warned you then." Would I have listened? Probably not. Love makes idiots of us all. He pocketed Miguel's photo. "I'll make some calls, rattle some cages, but this will cost you." "I have money. Not talking about money. I'm talking about consequences. You sure you want to open this door? Some things. Once you know them, you can't unknow." I thought about Lucas's terrified face in that video, about 18 years of lies, about a daughter I'd never held. I'm sure. Then we start with surveillance. Miguel has patterns, routines. Everyone does. We find his weaknesses. Len made good on his promise. By afternoon, he'd assembled a dossier that would have impressed the CIA. Miguel lived in a penthouse apartment in Chiado, drove a vintage Alfa Romeo Spider, and had expensive tastes in everything from wine to women. He was also deeply in debt despite his embassy salary. "Gambling problem," Len explained, as we sat in his beat-up Citroen outside Miguel's building. "Owes money to some very unfriendly people. The kind who break legs first and ask questions later. So he's desperate for money. Desperate enough to do things embassy attachés aren't supposed to do, like eliminate problems for his handlers." We followed Miguel through his afternoon routine: lunch at an expensive restaurant, shopping at designer stores, a stop at an underground poker game in a basement near the Cais do Sodré. He moved through the city like he owned it, confident and untouchable. That confidence was about to become a liability. At the poker game, Miguel lost badly. I watched through the basement window as he argued with the dealer, gesturing frantically. When he finally left, his face was flushed with anger and what looked like fear. "He's in deeper than I thought," Len murmured. "That was at least 20,000 euros he just lost." Good. Desperate people make mistakes. We tailed Miguel to a cafe in Alfama, where he met with Isabel. Even from across the street, I could see the tension between them. Their conversation was heated, conducted in rapid Portuguese with occasional gestures in my direction. "They're talking about you," Len translated. "She's angry that you found the drives. He's saying they should have handled this differently from the beginning." "What's she saying now?" "Something about Anna, that they need to move her again, somewhere you'll never find her." Len's expression darkened. "And something about making sure you stop looking permanently." I felt that familiar rage building in my chest, the same fury that had sustained me through the divorce proceedings and the long nights in Lucas's apartment. They'd eliminated one of my children, and now they wanted to make sure I never found the other. Over my dead body. I want to get closer, I said. Can you create a distraction? Len grinned, showing teeth stained by decades of coffee and cigarettes. Leave that to me. He walked casually past their table, bumping into a waiter carrying a tray of pastries. The resulting chaos, shouting, spilled coffee, scattered food, gave me the cover I needed to slip closer to their table. Has to disappear, Miguel was saying in English. Tonight, before he finds out about Porto. It's too risky, Isabel replied. If something happens to him so soon after Lucas, people will ask questions. Then we make it look like an accident. Or a self-destruction. Grieving father couldn't handle the loss, jumped off the Ponte 25 de Abril. Isabel considered this, twirling her wedding ring, the same ring I'd put on her finger 20 years ago. And Ana, already handled. She'll be on a plane to Sao Paulo tomorrow morning. New identity, new life. By the time anyone thinks to look for her, she'll be untraceable. My hands clenched into fists. They were going to eliminate me and disappear my daughter, all to protect their little spy operation. The casual way they discussed it, like they were planning a weekend trip, made my blood boil. I'd heard enough. I slipped back to where Len was still apologizing profusely to the waiter, and we left the cafe. Once we were safely in his car, I filled him in on what I'd overheard. Sao Paulo, he mused. That's Brazil. Portuguese territory, but far enough away that finding someone would be nearly impossible. Then we stop her from getting on that plane. We? This is moving beyond surveillance, my friend. What you're talking about is abduction, false imprisonment, maybe worse. What I'm talking about is saving my daughter's life. Len was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the Tagus River. Finally, he sighed. My retirement is boring anyway. What do you need? We spent the rest of the afternoon planning. Ana was a student at the University of Porto, about 3 hours north of Lisbon. If Miguel was telling the truth, she'd be leaving for Brazil tomorrow, which meant tonight was our only chance. But first I had a score to settle with Miguel himself. His Alfa Romeo was parked outside his apartment building, gleaming red paint reflecting the late afternoon sun. It was his pride and joy, according to Len's research. A 1967 Spider he'd spent years restoring. Shame if something happened to it, I murmured. Len raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Miguel needs to understand that actions have consequences. I'd brought a few supplies from Lucas's apartment, a hammer, some spray paint, and a can of sardines I'd found in the kitchen. While Len kept watch, I went to work on the Alfa Romeo. The windshield went first, spider webbing under the hammer's impact. Then the headlights, taillights, and side mirrors. I spray-painted Butcher across the hood in large black letters, then opened the sardine can and emptied it into the air vents. The smell would take weeks to get out, assuming the car was even salvageable. I was putting the finishing touches on my masterpiece when Len hissed a warning. Miguel was coming out of his building, probably heading to dinner before his flight to Porto. I ducked behind a parked van and watched as he discovered his ruined car. The sound he made was somewhere between a scream and a sob. He circled the Alfa Romeo like a man viewing his own corpse, hands shaking as he surveyed the damage. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Isabel, he said in English, his voice carrying in the evening air. We have a problem. He's escalating. We need to move tonight, not tomorrow. I couldn't hear Isabel's response, but Miguel's face went pale. I don't care what the schedule says, he snapped. He destroyed my car. He's sending a message. If we wait until tomorrow, he might get to Ana first. After he hung up, Miguel stood there for another minute, staring at his ruined car. Then he looked around as if sensing he was being watched. Our eyes met across the street. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Miguel smiled, the same cold smile I'd seen in the surveillance video, and raised his hand in a mock salute. Enjoy your victory, Caldwell, he called out. It will be your last. Then he turned and walked away, leaving his destroyed car behind like a discarded toy. Well, Len said quietly, I think you got his attention. Good. Now let's go get my daughter. As we drove north toward Porto, I couldn't shake the image of Miguel's smile. He wasn't afraid. He was amused, like a cat that had been playing with a mouse and was finally ready to end the game. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I was the mouse. He was about to learn otherwise. The drive to Porto gave me 3 hours to think, which was 3 hours too many. Every scenario I imagined ended badly. Ana dead, me in prison, Isabel and Miguel walking away clean. But the alternative was doing nothing, and that wasn't an option anymore. Tell me about Ana, Len said as we passed through Coimbra. What do you know about her life? I pulled out the file Lucas had compiled. She's studying art at the University of Porto, lives with a family named Moura who think they're her legal guardians. Scholarship student, works part-time at a gallery, no boyfriend that Lucas could find, but she has a close friend named Inez. 18 years old, never knew her real father existed, Len mused. This is going to be a shock. Assuming she believes me. You have DNA tests, birth certificates, photos of her as a baby. Evidence helps. We reached Porto as the sun was setting, painting the Douro River gold and red. The University of Porto campus sprawled across several city blocks, a mix of historic buildings and modern additions. According to Lucas's notes, Anna lived in student housing near the Faculty of Fine Arts. Finding her turned out to be easier than expected. She was exactly where Lucas's surveillance photos had been taken, sitting on a bench outside the art building, sketching the old cathedral across the square. Even from a distance, I could see the resemblance. She had my height, my bone structure, but Isabel's dark hair and delicate features, my daughter. The child I'd mourned for 18 years, thinking she'd died before I could hold her. She's beautiful, Len said quietly. She looks like her mother. She looks like you too, same stubborn jaw. I approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. She was absorbed in her sketch, charcoal pencil moving in quick, confident strokes. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. Those were definitely my eyes staring back at me from a face that was unmistakably Isabel's daughter. Anna, I said in English. She looked up, startled. Sim, do I know you? Her English was perfect, with just a trace of Portuguese accent. Of course it was. Isabel would have made sure she was educated properly, even if she'd hidden her existence. My name is Ethan Caldwell. I believe I'm your father. The charcoal pencil fell from her fingers. What? I know this sounds insane, but I have proof. Your real mother is Isabel da Costa. You were born 18 years ago in Lisbon. She told me you died, but she was lying. She hid you. Anna stood up quickly, gathering her art supplies. You're crazy. My parents died in a car accident when I was a baby. The Mouras adopted me. That's what they told you, but it's not true. I pulled out my phone, showing her the DNA test results. Look at this. Look at the birth certificate. She glanced at the screen, then shook her head. Anyone can fake documents. I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but... Lucas, I said desperately. Did you know Lucas Caldwell? Anna froze. How do you know about Lucas? He was my son, adopted son. He died 3 months ago, but before he died, he found you. He was trying to reunite us when someone eliminated him. Lucas is dead, her voice was barely a whisper. You knew him? He contacted me a few months ago, said he was researching his family tree, that he thought we might be related. We met for coffee a few times. He seemed nice, but... She trailed off, studying my face. You really think you're my father? I don't think, I know. A young woman with short blonde hair approached us, eyeing me suspiciously. Ana, está tudo bem? This is Inez, Ana said. My roommate. Inez, this man says he's my father. Inez looked me up and down like I was something unpleasant she'd found on her shoe. Your father is dead. That's what we all thought, I said. But it was a lie. Ana, I know this is overwhelming, but you're in danger. The people who eliminated Lucas are coming for you tonight. That's ridiculous. Why would anyone want to hurt me? Because you're evidence of their crimes. Your existence proves that Isabel, your mother, has been lying for 18 years about who she is and what she's been doing. Ana and Inez exchanged a look. Then Ana shook her head. I'm sorry, but this is too crazy. Even if what you're saying is true, I have a life here, a family. I can't just... They're planning to take you to Brazil tonight, I interrupted. New identity, new life. You'll disappear forever and I'll never see you again. Maybe that would be for the best. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I'd found my daughter after 18 years and she wanted nothing to do with me. Ana, please, just listen to what I have to say. If you still don't believe me after that, I'll leave you alone. She hesitated, then looked at Inez. They had a rapid conversation in Portuguese that I couldn't follow. Finally, Ana sighed. 30 minutes, she said. There's a cafe around the corner. But if this is some kind of trick, it's not. The cafe was small and crowded, filled with university students, and the smell of coffee and cigarettes. We found a corner table where we could talk privately. Len positioned himself near the entrance, keeping watch for Miguel or Isabel. I told Ana everything. How I'd met her mother, our troubled marriage, the fake pregnancy fault, Lucas's adoption, the surveillance video, the evidence of homicide. I showed her photos of herself as a baby, pictures I'd taken during Isabel's pregnancy, documents that proved beyond doubt that she was my biological daughter. By the time I finished, Anna was crying. "All these years," she whispered. "I thought my real parents didn't want me. The Muras are good people, but they always made it clear I was a charity case, someone they took in out of obligation. Your mother wanted you," I said. "She just wanted you hidden. And I never knew you existed until 3 days ago. If I had known..." "What? What would you have done?" "Everything. I would have done everything to find you, to bring you home, to be your father." Anna wiped her eyes with a napkin. Lucas said something similar when we met. He said he thought we both deserved better than the lies we'd been told. He was right. And now he's dead because of it. Yes. She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. Then she looked up at me with eyes that were definitely mine. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to be safe. I want the people who eliminated Lucas to pay for what they've done. And I want the chance to know my daughter, if she'll let me, even if I'm not who you hoped I'd be." "You're exactly who I hoped you'd be." Inez, who had been listening to our conversation with growing alarm, suddenly grabbed Anna's arm. "Ana, hola!" She pointed toward the cafe window. A black sedan with diplomatic plates was parked across the street. Miguel Duarte sat in the passenger seat, talking on his phone. "They found us," I said. "Who is that?" Ana asked. "Miguel Duarte, one of the people who eliminated Lucas." As we watched, Miguel ended his call and got out of the car. He was heading for the cafe entrance. "Back exit," Len said, appearing at our table. "Now." We moved quickly through the crowded cafe toward the rear exit. I could see Miguel pushing through the front entrance, scanning the room. His eyes met mine across the crowded space, and he smiled that same cold smile. "Run," I told Ana. We burst through the back door into a narrow alley that smelled of garbage and stale wine. Ana and Inez knew the area better than we did, leading us through a maze of side streets and shortcuts that would have been impossible to navigate without local knowledge. Behind us, I could hear shouting in Portuguese and the sound of running feet. Miguel had backup. "This way," Ana called, ducking into a doorway that led to an underground passage. "It connects to the metro station." The passage was dark and damp, lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs that cast eerie shadows on the tiled walls. Our footsteps echoed in the confined space, along with the sound of our pursuers somewhere behind us. "There," Inez pointed to a stairway leading up to street level. "The metro entrance." We climbed the stairs 2 at a time, emerging into the chaos of a busy metro station. Commuters rushed past us, heading home from work, oblivious to the drama unfolding around them. "Which way to the trains?" I asked. Ana pointed toward the turnstiles. "But we need tickets." "No time." I vaulted over the turnstile, ignoring the shouts of the station attendant. The others followed, and we ran toward the platform, where a train was just pulling in. The doors opened, and passengers began filing out. We pushed against the crowd, trying to get aboard before Miguel and his men reached the platform. "Hurry!" Len urged, holding the doors open. Ana and Inez made it aboard, followed by Len. I was the last one through the doors, and as they began to close, I saw Miguel appear at the top of the platform stairs. Our eyes met one more time, and he raised his hand to his ear in the universal gesture for phone call. The message was clear. This isn't over. As the train pulled away from the station, Ana collapsed into a seat, breathing heavily. "This is really happening," she said. "Someone actually wants to hurt me." "Not just hurt," I said grimly. "Miguel told Isabel they were planning to make you disappear permanently. Tonight was supposed to be your last night in Portugal." "But why? I don't know anything about their business." "I don't even know what their business is." "You don't have to know anything. You just have to exist. Your existence proves that Isabel has been lying about who she is for 18 years. That makes you a liability." The train was heading back toward Lisbon, carrying us away from Porto and whatever trap Miguel had been preparing. But I knew this was only a temporary reprieve. Miguel and Isabel wouldn't give up easily. "What happens now?" Ana asked. "Now we go on the offensive," I said. "I'm tired of running from these people. It's time they started running from me." Len raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to introduce Isabel and Miguel to the concept of consequences." As the train carried us through the Portuguese countryside toward Lisbon, I began planning their destruction. They'd taken my son, hidden my daughter, and tried to destroy my life. Now it was my turn, and I was going to enjoy every minute of it. We reached Lisbon just after midnight, the city's ancient streets glistening with a light rain that made everything look like a film noir movie. Anna had dozed off during the train ride, her head resting against the window. And for the first time in 18 years, I watched my daughter sleep. She looked peaceful, innocent. Nothing like the hardened survivor I was beginning to realize she actually was. Growing up believing you're an orphan, then discovering your parents are alive but one is a spy and the other is a stranger, would break most people. Anna just seemed to be processing it all with the same quiet intensity she brought to her art. "She's stronger than she looks," Len observed quietly. "She'd have to be, to survive 18 years of Isabel's lies." We took a taxi to Len's apartment in Grassa, a cramped but secure space above a bakery that smelled perpetually of fresh bread. Anna and Inez could stay there while Len and I dealt with Miguel and Isabel. "I want to help," Anna said as we settled into Len's living room. "These people eliminated Lucas and tried to abduct me. I have a right to be involved." "You have a right to be safe," I corrected. "Let me handle this." "Like you handled it for the past 18 years? The words stung because they were true. I'd been handling Isabel's deceptions for 2 decades, and all I'd accomplished was getting my adopted son eliminated and my real daughter endangered. "This is different," I said. "Now I know what I'm dealing with." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're making the same mistakes, trying to protect people by keeping them in the dark." She had a point. Lucas had died partly because he'd tried to handle everything alone. I wasn't going to make the same mistake. "All right," I said. "But we do this my way, carefully, methodically, and with backup plans for the backup plans." Anna smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her. "Now you sound like a father." Over the next few hours, we planned our counterattack. Miguel and Isabel had advantages: diplomatic immunity, intelligence resources, local connections, but they also had weaknesses. Miguel's gambling debts, Isabel's need to maintain or cover their obvious romantic relationship that violated embassy protocols. Most importantly, they thought they were hunting prey. They weren't prepared to become the hunted. Miguel's apartment first, I decided. He's rattled after what happened to his car. Rattled people make mistakes. "What kind of mistakes?" Anna asked. "The kind that leave evidence lying around." Miguel's building in Chiado was the kind of place where diplomats and wealthy criminals lived side by side, all glass and steel and carefully maintained anonymity. The doorman was the weak link, a bored-looking man in his 60s who probably made more from bribes than his salary. Len handled the approach, speaking rapid Portuguese and sliding a 50-euro note across the marble counter. The doorman glanced at the money, then at us, then made the money disappear. "Apartamento 12A, he said. "Senor Duarte saiu ha uma hora." He left an hour ago. The elevator ride to the 12th floor gave me time to think about what we might find. Miguel was arrogant, used to operating with impunity. Men like that often kept trophies, records, evidence of their power. If I was lucky, he'd have something that could destroy him. If I was very lucky, he'd have something that could destroy Isabel, too. The apartment door was secured with an electronic lock, but Len produced a small device that made quick work of it. "Don't ask where I got this," he said as the lock clicked open. Miguel's apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive furniture, abstract art, and a view of the Tagus River that probably cost more per month than most people made in a year. It was also a monument to narcissism, with photographs of Miguel shaking hands with politicians, attending embassy functions, and posing next to his now destroyed Alfa Romeo. "Bedroom," I said. "That's where people keep their real secrets." The master bedroom was dominated by a king-size bed and a wall-mounted television, but it was the desk in the corner that caught my attention. Unlike the rest of the apartment, which was meticulously clean, the desk was cluttered with papers, photographs, and electronic devices. "He's been working from home," Anna observed. "Look at all this." The papers were a mixture of Portuguese and English, but the photographs told a clear story. Surveillance shots of Lucas taken in the weeks before his end. Pictures of Anna at the university, walking to class, sitting in cafes. Images of me in Boston, at the courthouse, at the airport before my flight to Lisbon. They'd been watching all of us for months, but it was the laptop that provided the real treasure. Miguel hadn't bothered to log out of his email account, and his recent messages painted a picture of a man under enormous pressure. "Look at this," Anna said, reading over my shoulder. He owes money to half the criminals in Lisbon. The emails detailed gambling debts, loan shark payments, and increasingly desperate attempts to raise cash. Miguel was in deep financial trouble, which explained why he was so eager to please his handlers. Here, I said, opening another folder. Messages from Isabel. The correspondence between Miguel and my ex-wife was revealing in multiple ways. They were definitely lovers. The sexual content of some messages left no doubt about that. But they were also business partners in something that went far beyond simple espionage. They're selling information, Anna said, scanning the emails. Names of American assets, details about CIA operations in Europe, locations of safe houses. That's treason, Len said grimly. For both of them. I kept reading, looking for something that would give us leverage. Then I found it. A message from Isabel dated just 2 days ago. The Caldwell situation is becoming untenable. Lucas left more evidence than we thought, and Ethan is not the broken man we expected. Recommend immediate termination of all assets, including the daughter. We can blame it on a terrorist attack, make them both disappear permanently. Payment as discussed, $500K to your Cayman account. My hands shook as I read the words. Isabel wasn't just planning to eliminate me and Anna. She was planning to profit from it. Copy everything, I told Len. Every file, every email, every photograph. While Len worked on the laptop, I searched the rest of the apartment. In Miguel's bedroom closet, hidden behind expensive suits, I found a safe. The combination was written on a piece of paper taped to the inside of a shoe, another sign of Miguel's arrogance. Inside the safe were documents that made the email correspondence look like love letters. Bank account numbers in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Singapore. Records of payments from Russian intelligence, Chinese military officials, and North Korean diplomats. Miguel and Isabel weren't just selling American secrets. They were running a full-service espionage operation. Jesus, Anna whispered, looking at the bank records. They've made millions. Blood money, I said, every dollar paid for with someone else's life. But it was the last document in the safe that made my blood run cold. A eliminate order, written in Portuguese but with enough English words that I could understand the gist. It authorized the elimination of all witnesses to the Caldwell operation, including the daughter Anna Moura and any associates who have gained knowledge of the situation. Len's name was on the list, so was Inez. We need to go, I said. Now. What's wrong? Anna asked. I showed her the eliminate order. They're not just coming for us, they're coming for everyone who knows about this. We gathered all the evidence and left Miguel's apartment exactly as we'd found it, except for one small addition. I left a note on his pillow. Enjoyed the visit? Your car was just the beginning. EC. Let him wonder what else I'd found, what other surprises I might have in store. Back at Len's apartment, we spread the evidence across his kitchen table, like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Bank records, email correspondence, photographs, eliminate orders. Together, they painted a picture of corruption that reached from Lisbon to Washington to Moscow. This is enough to destroy them both, Len said, but we need to be careful about how we use it. What do you mean? I mean, Isabel has diplomatic immunity and connections throughout the Portuguese government. Miguel has friends in the embassy and the intelligence services. If we just hand this over to the authorities, it might disappear. Then what do you suggest? Anna looked up from the photographs she'd been studying. We make it public, all of it, at once. So many people see it that they can't cover it up. How? She smiled, and for the first time, I saw Isabel's cunning in her expression. Leave that to me. I know people. Over the next 2 hours, Anna worked her magic. She had contacts in the Portuguese media, student activists with access to social networks, and friends in the international art community who could spread information across borders. By dawn, the evidence of Miguel and Isabel's crimes would be in the hands of journalists in Lisbon, Madrid, London, and New York. But first, we had one more stop to make. Isabel's apartment, I said. She'll have evidence there too, and I want to look her in the eye when her world comes crashing down. That's dangerous, Len warned. She'll be expecting us. Good, I said. I want her to know we're coming. As we prepared to leave Len's apartment, Anna grabbed my arm. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For finding me, for believing Lucas, for giving me the chance to help bring them down. I hugged my daughter for the first time in 18 years. She felt small in my arms, but I could sense the strength beneath the surface, the same strength that had helped her survive a childhood built on lies. Thank you for letting me be your father, I said. even if it's only for a few hours, even if it's only for a few minutes. But I was hoping for much longer than that. If our plan worked, if we could destroy Isabel and Miguel's operation and survive the attempt, maybe Anna and I could have the relationship that had been stolen from us 18 years ago. First, though, we had to finish what Lucas had started, and that meant confronting the woman who had destroyed so many lives in service of her own ambition. Isabel was waiting for us. I was counting on it. Isabel's apartment in Lapa occupied the top floor of a converted palace, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers and views that cost more than most people's houses. I had been there once before during our divorce proceedings and remembered feeling intimidated by the casual display of wealth. Now it just looked like evidence of corruption. Motion sensors on the balcony, Len observed, studying the building from across the street. Security cameras at every entrance. She's not taking any chances. Good, I said. Paranoid people make mistakes. We'd left Anna and Inez at a safe house, another of Len's contacts, a retired judge who owed him favors and asked no questions. The evidence we'd gathered was already spreading across the internet, but I wanted to confront Isabel personally before she learned about the leak. I wanted to see her face when she realized she'd lost. The building's security was impressive, but not impenetrable. Len had contacts among the maintenance staff, and a combination of bribes and old friendships got us access through the service entrance. Apartment 15A, the janitor told us in broken English. Senora Isabel, she is home. Has visitors. Perfect. I wanted an audience for what was about to happen. The elevator to the 15th floor was mirrored, and I caught sight of my reflection as we rose. I looked older than I had 3 days ago, harder. Finding out that your entire life has been built on lies will do that to a person. The hallway was carpeted in deep red, with oil paintings that probably cost more than my annual salary. Isabel had always had expensive tastes, but I'd never wondered where the money came from. Now I knew. I could hear voices from inside the apartment, Isabel's cultured Portuguese accent, Miguel's nasal whine, and a third voice I didn't recognize. They were arguing about something, their voices rising and falling in the rhythm of people under stress. Ready? Len asked. I nodded and pressed the doorbell. The voices inside stopped abruptly. After a moment, Isabel's voice came through the intercom. Comme est? It's me, Isabel. We need to talk. A long pause, then the sound of locks being turned, chains being removed. The door opened to reveal my ex-wife, looking as beautiful and cold as ever. She was wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than most people's cars, and her dark hair was pulled back in a style that emphasized her cheekbones. Ethan, she said calmly, I wasn't expecting you. I'll bet you weren't. She stepped aside to let us enter, and I got my first look at the apartment's interior. It was even more opulent than I remembered, with Persian rugs and Renaissance paintings and furniture that belonged in a museum. Miguel was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows looking out at the city. He turned as we entered, and I was pleased to see that his usual confidence had been replaced by something that looked like fear. The third person in the room was a woman I didn't recognize. Middle-aged, severe-looking, wearing a business suit that screamed government official. Ethan Caldwell, Isabel said formally. I'd like you to meet Carla Santos, Deputy Director of the Portuguese Intelligence Service. Santos studied me with the expression of someone examining an interesting insect. Senor Caldwell, you've been causing quite a disturbance. Just getting started, I replied. Isabel moved to the bar and poured herself a glass of wine, her movements casual and controlled. Would you like a drink? You look tired. I am tired. Tired of your lies, tired of your games, tired of pretending you're anything other than a butcher and a traitor. Such harsh words, Isabel said, taking a sip of wine. And based on what evidence? I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of the eliminate order we'd found in Miguel's safe. This evidence. For the first time since I'd known her, Isabel's composure cracked. The wine glass trembled in her hand and a flush of color appeared on her cheeks. Where did you get that? Miguel's apartment, along with bank records, email correspondence, and enough evidence to put you both away for the rest of your lives. Miguel stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. You broke into my apartment? I visited your apartment. You really should be more careful with your passwords. Santos was studying the photo on my phone with professional interest. May I see that? I handed her the phone, watching her face as she read the eliminate order. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her grip tighten on the device. This is concerning, she said finally. Concerning? I laughed. It's a damn execution list. Language, Ethan, Isabel said mildly. We have a guest. We have a co-conspirator. How much is Santos getting paid to look the other way? Santos handed me back my phone. I'm not being paid anything, Senor Caldwell. I'm here because Miguel requested emergency assistance in dealing with what he described as a rogue American asset. And what do you think now? Santos looked at Isabel, then at Miguel, then back at me. I think I've been lied to. The admission hung in the air like smoke from a tool. Isabel set down her wine glass and walked to the window, staring out at the city she'd been selling to the highest bidder. It's not that simple, she said finally. It's exactly that simple, I replied. You eliminated Lucas because he found out about your operation. You hid Anna from me for 18 years because she was evidence of your lies. You've been selling American intelligence to anyone willing to pay for it. The only complicated part is figuring out how many people died because of the information you provided. You don't understand the bigger picture. I understand that you're a traitor and a butcher. Everything else is just details. Miguel had been silent during this exchange, but now he stepped forward with something that looked like his old arrogance. You can't prove any of this, he said. Accusations without evidence are just conspiracy theories. Good thing I have evidence, then. I pulled out copies of the bank records, email correspondence, and photographs we'd found. Santos examined them with growing alarm, while Isabel and Miguel exchanged increasingly desperate looks. This is fabricated, Miguel said, but his voice lacked conviction. Really? Then you won't mind if we verify the bank account numbers, or trace the email headers, or run forensic analysis on the photographs? Santos was already on her phone, speaking rapid Portuguese to someone on the other end. I caught enough words to understand that she was calling for backup. It's over, I told Isabel. In about 6 hours, every major newspaper in Europe and America will have copies of everything we found. Your faces will be on the front page of every paper from Lisbon to London to New York. Diplomatic immunity won't protect you from that kind of exposure. Isabel turned from the window, and for the first time in 20 years, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. What do you want? She asked quietly. I want Lucas back. I want the 18 years with Anna that you stole from me. I want every person who died because of the intelligence you sold to still be alive. That's impossible. I know. So I'll settle for watching you and Miguel spend the rest of your lives in prison, knowing that everyone sees you for what you really are. Santos ended her phone call and looked at us grimly. My people will be here in 10 minutes. Until then, no one leaves this apartment. Miguel made a move toward the door, but Len blocked his path. I don't think so. You can't hold us here, Miguel protested. We have diplomatic immunity. Had, Santos corrected. As of 5 minutes ago, your immunity has been revoked. You're both under arrest for treason, espionage, and conspiracy to commit homicide. Isabel laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Treason? Against which country? I'm Portuguese, not American. You're both, I said. Dual citizenship, which means you betrayed both countries. The sound of sirens was growing louder outside. Santos moved to the window and looked down at the street, where police cars were pulling up in front of the building. It's finished, she said simply. But Miguel wasn't ready to surrender. He grabbed a letter opener from Isabel's desk and lunged at me, desperation giving him speed if not skill. I'd been expecting something like this. Men like Miguel don't go quietly, and cornered animals are always dangerous. I sidestepped his clumsy attack and grabbed his wrist, twisting until he dropped the weapon. You took my son, I said, pinning him against the wall. You tried to eliminate my daughter. You destroyed my family for money. It wasn't personal, Miguel gasped. It was just business. Everything is personal. I could have hurt him then. Part of me wanted to make him feel a fraction of the pain he'd caused. Instead, I stepped back and let him collapse to the floor. You're not worth it, I said. The apartment door burst open, and Portuguese police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Santos showed her credentials and began explaining the situation in rapid Portuguese. Within minutes, Isabel and Miguel were in handcuffs, their faces pale with shock. This isn't over, Isabel said as they led her toward the door. You think you've won, but you don't know how deep this goes. There are others. Let them come, I said. I'm not hiding anymore. After they were gone, Santos and I stood in the suddenly quiet apartment, surrounded by the evidence of Isabel's wealth and corruption. What happens now? I asked. Now we clean up the mess. Santos replied. This investigation will take months, maybe years. There will be trials, appeals, international complications. It won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. Santos studied me with those sharp intelligence officer eyes. You realize you could have been eliminated? Taking on an operation like this without official support was incredibly dangerous. They already took everything that mattered to me. What did I have to lose? Your life, your daughter's life. Anna's safe now, that's all that matters. Santos nodded slowly. She's lucky to have a father like you. I'm lucky to have a daughter like her. I left Isabel's apartment as the sun was rising over Lisbon, painting the Tagus River gold and red. The city looked different somehow, cleaner, more honest. Or maybe that was just me. Len was waiting in the car, grinning like a man who'd just won the lottery. How does it feel? He asked as we drove toward the safe house where Anna was waiting. Like justice, I said. Finally. But even as I said it, I knew this was just the beginning. Isabel had been right about one thing. There were others involved in the operation, and they wouldn't be happy about losing two of their best assets. Let them come. I'd found my daughter, exposed the truth about Lucas's end, and brought down the people responsible. Whatever happened next, I was ready for it. For the first time in 18 years, I felt like a father. The safe house was a modest apartment in Alfama, tucked between a fado restaurant and a shop that sold nothing but sardines. Anna was waiting on the small balcony, sketching the sunrise over the red tile roofs, when Len and I arrived. Is it over? She asked without looking up from her drawing. The first part is, I said, settling into the chair beside her. Isabel and Miguel are in custody. The evidence is public. Their operation is finished. But your mother was right about one thing. There are others involved, and they're not going to be happy about losing their Portuguese assets. Anna set down her charcoal pencil and looked at me with those green eyes that were so much like mine. So what do? We finish what Lucas started. Over the next 3 days, the story exploded across international media. The Portuguese intelligence scandal, as the papers were calling it, dominated headlines from Lisbon to Washington. Isabel and Miguel's faces were on the front page of every major newspaper, along with details of their espionage operation and the evidence of their crimes. The American embassy issued a statement expressing deep concern about the breach of security. The Portuguese government promised a thorough investigation of intelligence service procedures, the usual diplomatic language that meant everyone was scrambling to cover their asses. But the real story was being told in the details that emerged each day. Bank accounts in offshore havens, payments from foreign intelligence services, a network of corruption that stretched across 3 continents. Every revelation made Isabel and Miguel look smaller, more pathetic. I was enjoying every minute of it. Look at this, Anna said, showing me her laptop screen. We were in Len's apartment, monitoring the media coverage while Portuguese authorities processed the evidence we'd provided. The screen showed a news report from CNN with footage of Isabel being led into court in handcuffs. She looked nothing like the confident, beautiful woman who had destroyed my life. Prison clothes and no makeup had revealed what she really was. A middle-aged criminal who'd gotten too clever for her own good. She looks older, Anna observed. Evil ages you, I said. Prison will age her more. The legal proceedings moved faster than I'd expected. With the evidence we'd provided, plus testimony from Santos and other Portuguese intelligence officials, the case against Isabel and Miguel was airtight. They were charged with treason, espionage, conspiracy to commit homicide, and about a dozen other crimes that would keep them locked up for the rest of their lives. Miguel tried to make a deal, offering to testify against Isabel in exchange for a reduced sentence. Isabel's response was to have her lawyer release a statement claiming that Miguel had been the mastermind of the operation, and she had been coerced into participating. Honor among thieves, Len observed as we read about their mutual betrayal in the morning papers. There was never any honor in what they did, I replied. But even as Isabel and Miguel's legal situation deteriorated, I knew the real danger was still out there. Their foreign handlers wouldn't just write off the loss of a valuable intelligence asset. They'd want revenge, or at least to tie up loose ends. I was right to be worried. The first attempt came on a Tuesday morning, as Anna and I were walking through the Rocio Square. A motorcycle with 2 riders approached at high speed, the passenger reaching into his jacket for what was obviously a weapon. I tackled Anna to the ground behind a fountain just as the first shots rang out. Tourists screamed and scattered, while the motorcycle circled back for another pass. Stay down, I told Anna, pulling out the pistol Len had given me. I'd hoped I wouldn't need it, but hope doesn't stop bullets. The motorcycle came around again, slower this time, the passenger taking careful aim. I waited until they were close enough that I couldn't miss, then put 2 rounds into the bike's front tire. The motorcycle went down hard, sliding across the cobblestones in a shower of sparks. Both riders were thrown clear, the passenger's tools skittering away across the square. Portuguese police arrived within minutes, but the attackers were already gone, disappeared into the maze of Alfama's narrow streets. They'd left behind a motorcycle with stolen plates and no identification. Professional, Len said later, examining the scene. But sloppy. They underestimated you. They won't make that mistake twice. Santos agreed to provide protection, but I knew it was temporary. The Portuguese government wanted this scandal to disappear as quickly as possible, which meant they wouldn't be able to protect us indefinitely. We need to end this, I told Anna that evening. As long as Isabel and Miguel's handlers think we're a threat, we'll never be safe. What do you suggest? We make ourselves too dangerous to eliminate. The plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. We would identify the foreign intelligence services that had been buying information from Isabel and Miguel, then release everything we knew about their operations, make the cost of eliminating us higher than the cost of leaving us alone. It took 2 weeks of careful investigation, using contacts Len had developed during his police career and resources Anna had found through her art world connections. Slowly, we built a picture of the network that had employed Isabel and Miguel. Russian military intelligence, Chinese state security, North Korean operatives, Iranian intelligence officers. They'd been selling secrets to anyone willing to pay, without regard for the consequences. The evidence was damning, but it was also dangerous. These weren't Portuguese criminals who could be arrested and tried in open court. These were foreign intelligence operatives who eliminated people for a living. Are you sure about this? Anna asked as we prepared to release the information. No, I admitted. But I'm sure about the alternative. If we don't act, we'll spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Then let's finish this. The release was coordinated across multiple platforms simultaneously. WikiLeaks, major newspapers, intelligence analysis websites, social media platforms. Within hours, the details of Isabel and Miguel's foreign contacts were public knowledge. The response was immediate and global. The Russian operatives were recalled to Moscow. The Chinese intelligence officers disappeared from their embassy posts. The North Koreans simply vanished, leaving behind empty apartments and disconnected phone numbers. More importantly, the message was clear. We knew who they were, and if anything happened to us, more information would be released. It was mutually assured destruction on a personal level. The second assassination attempt came 3 days later, but it was half-hearted. A single sniper who missed his shot and fled when Portuguese police responded. After that, nothing. I think they got the message, Santos said when we met at a cafe near the courthouse where Isabel and Miguel were being tried. You're more dangerous alive than dead now. That was the idea. It was also incredibly risky. You could have triggered an international incident. I triggered justice, I corrected. Everything else is just politics. The trial lasted 6 weeks and dominated Portuguese media coverage. Every day brought new revelations about the scope of Isabel and Miguel's operation, the damage they'd caused to national security, the lives that had been lost because of the intelligence they'd sold. I testified on the 3rd week telling the court about Lucas's homicide and Anna's abduction. It was the first time I'd spoken publicly about what had happened, and the courtroom was silent as I described finding the evidence in Lucas's apartment. They eliminated a 22-year-old boy, I said, looking directly at Isabel, because he wanted to reunite a father with his daughter. That's the kind of people they are. Isabel stared back at me with those dark eyes that had once made me believe I was loved. Now they just looked empty. Miguel broke first, as I'd expected. On the 4th week of testimony, he confessed to everything: the espionage, the homicides, the conspiracy. He claimed Isabel had seduced him into the operation, that he'd been a sufferer of her manipulation. Isabel's response was swift and brutal. Her lawyer released evidence that Miguel had been selling intelligence for years before he'd ever met her, that he'd recruited her into an existing operation, not the other way around. They're destroying each other, Anna observed as we read about their mutual accusations in the morning papers. Good. Let them. The verdicts came on a Friday afternoon in October, 6 months after I'd first found Lucas's hidden evidence. Isabel was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Miguel received the same sentence, plus an additional 20 years for the homicide of Lucas. Neither showed any emotion as the sentences were read. Outside the courthouse, Anna and I stood in the afternoon sunshine, watching as the media circus packed up and moved on to the next story. "Is it really over?" she asked. "The legal part is," I said. "The rest is up to us." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we have a choice. We can spend the rest of our lives being defined by what Isabel and Miguel did to us, or we can build something new." Anna was quiet for a moment, watching the pigeons that congregated around the courthouse steps. Then she smiled, the same smile I'd been seeing more often as we'd gotten to know each other. "I'd like to build something new," she said, "with my father. Even though I'm not the father you imagined, you're exactly the father I needed." We walked away from the courthouse together, leaving behind the wreckage of Isabel's lies and the weight of 18 years of deception. There would be challenges ahead. Anna was still processing the truth about her childhood. I was still learning how to be a father to a grown daughter. And we both carried scars from what we'd endured. But we had something Isabel and Miguel would never understand. We had each other. And we had the truth. 6 months later, Anna graduated from the University of Porto with honors. I was in the front row of the auditorium, applauding louder than anyone else as she crossed the stage to receive her degree in fine arts. After the ceremony, we went to dinner at a small restaurant overlooking the Douro River. Anna showed me her portfolio, paintings and sketches that captured the beauty and complexity of Portuguese life with an artist's eye and a survivor's heart. "What's next?" I asked. "I've been accepted to graduate school in New York," she said. "Art history, with a focus on how trauma influences artistic expression." That sounds perfect. There's just one problem. What's that? I don't know anyone in New York. I'd be completely alone. I smiled and reached across the table to take her hand. Actually, I've been thinking about moving back to the States, starting fresh somewhere new, maybe New York. Really? Really? If my daughter doesn't mind having her old man around? I'd like that, Anna said. I'd like that very much. As we sat there in the Portuguese sunshine planning our future together, I thought about Lucas and the sacrifice he'd made to bring us together. He'd died, trying to reunite a father with his daughter, and in the end, he'd succeeded. Isabel and Miguel were spending their lives in prison, their reputations destroyed, their network of corruption exposed and dismantled. The people they'd worked with were either dead in hiding or facing their own legal troubles. Justice had been served, but more importantly, a family had been restored. I raised my wineglass in a silent toast to Lucas wherever he was. Then Anna and I began planning the rest of our lives, lives that would be built on truth instead of lies, on love instead of betrayal, on the unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter. Some inherit money, some inherit pain. I'd inherited both, along with a daughter I'd thought was dead and the ashes of a marriage built on deception. But I'd also inherited something else, the chance to be the father I'd always wanted to be, to the daughter I'd never known I had. It was the best inheritance of all.